What's up, folks? Today we're going to be talking about the importance of leveling your scope to your rifle and making sure your entire system is level. So I'm going to do it. I'm going to get this one set up, but I'm going to kind of be talking through the thought process and just the general principle, not just so you can see me do it, but you can learn why it works and why it's important. So this is a gun that I recently rebarreled. So I had this scope zeroed on there, rebarreled it, so I need to zero it again. Obviously it's not going to be the exact same with a new barrel. Probably in the ballpark, but this is a good chance to just work through everything, get it all set up right, get it set up exactly how I need it. So just before we get started, no mag in the gun. We're just going to make sure that we're clear, we're on safe, we're locked back, gun is clean, clear, empty, ready to go. So what are we talking about here? Why is it important that your scope is precisely level? A lot of people will get a nice gun, get a nice optic, and then get crappy rings to hold them all together. Or they'll even get nice rings, but then they'll just eyeball it and say, hey, that looks level, and then they'll bolt it down. Or maybe they'll put it in a vise and then eyeball it, which doesn't really do anything if you're not actually measuring it to anything. It's important to make sure that the entire system is level, both the scope to the gun and then the entire system to the earth, because when we start to dial elevation at longer distances, we want to make sure that when we're dialing up and down, we're truly only dialing up and down, not with a little bit of left or a little bit of right, because our scope is canted. So sometimes you'll hear these devices to level it called an anti-cant device. I jokingly call it a can device if it's an anti-cant device, but ultimately all it is just a level. So it's important to make sure that this is all squared up so that we can be precise at longer distances. So to do that, we first want to make sure that the rifle and the scope are square together. Most modern scopes will have a flat bottom. If you don't have a flat bottom, you'll need to come up with a different solution. Some people like hanging a plumb line downrange, just taking a string with a bolt, a rock, something like that, lead fishing weight, hang it vertical. And then all you have to do is just get your vertical crosshair and make sure that is lined up to that plumb line. Then you know that you're nice and level. It's also helpful if for any reason you suspect that the reticle in your scope is not actually level to the inside of your scope. If that was an issue, you should probably send it back to the manufacturer. Most quality scopes, you don't really have to worry about that. If it's a $159 hardware store special, yeah, I wouldn't necessarily trust that that reticle is going to be perfectly level, but on most high quality name brand stuff, that's going to be just fine. So here we're just trying to make sure that this flat base is perfectly parallel to this flat base. And so a tool I like to use to do that is, there are a number like this. This one is from toughtacticaltools.com, but it is basically just a machined sliding base that can sit on this flat surface, and then a slide that's just a triangle of a known angle that can slide back and forth, and I'll show you off of the gun so you can get a feel for what I'm talking about. Let me just go ahead and put this on the bipod. So the idea is mechanically very simple. You have a 90-degree angle here, so that sits square on the gun. You have a 90-degree angle here, so that sits square on the scope. Then your triangle of a known angle with a matching known angle slides in here. So no matter if you push it, it fills that gap, and that gap expands, but it keeps this plane and this plane perfectly parallel. So I can know that the base of my scope is perfectly lined up to the base of my gun, and I'm not going to be canted one way or another. So obviously I have this way out of whack right now, just visually so you can see what's happening. So I'll put this in here. I already have my scope rings loosened up enough so that I can physically push this around a little bit one way or another, but not totally loosey-goosey. So obviously that's not fitting in there at all. So I'm just going to want to turn this with my hand while pushing this triangle piece in there. And I keep kind of turning it, tapping it, pushing. There we go. And now I can't turn it anymore. This has created a solid wedge that's not going to let those two flats turn at all. And so I'll pull it out, move to a different position, push it in as much as I can. Try that various places on the flat. Now you'll notice on this Aero Precision mount, I like these because it's a one-piece mount that's machined aluminum, but it's got these little bumps here, so I can't check it the entire length on this side. But I can go to the other side. Check that. It shouldn't move. It shouldn't be any different. Try to wiggle it. That's how I know I'm locked in there. I'm nice and square. So with the tool in there, I'm just gonna leave it. You can see it in there. Leave it in there just for now. I'm gonna go ahead and tighten my scope rings. I like these Aero Precision mounts because it uses a hinge style clamp on top. So it gives me good pressure all the way around, but I don't have to balance out left, right, left, right. I can just tighten it all from one side. It's a good, simple design. It's also very lightweight. This rifle with this heavy barrel in here was starting to get a little bit heavy, so I wanted to make sure to use quality lightweight components to just not continue to add weight. Just keep the system light. So you probably already know this, but just like tightening a rim on your truck, you're gonna wanna just go through, tighten each screw a little bit at a time so you're not putting a ton of tension on one and then playing catch up somewhere else. I don't think the order actually matters that much, just as long as they're all fairly evenly torqued. And I have a pretty good feel for this because I've done it a lot. But if you don't have a great feel for this, please, please, please use a torque wrench set to inch pounds, not foot pounds, so that you don't strip out your mount. Because remember, these are steel screws going into aluminum. It's really easy to over tighten it, thinking you're doing something good by getting it nice and tight, and then you totally ruin your mount. So, got that in there. This sits nice and square throughout. Pull it out. It shouldn't really tighten anymore. Yeah, we're nice and solid there. Yeah. Cool. So now with that squaring tool, I can know that my optic is square to my gun. But what keeps the whole system aligned to gravity? I know that this is good, but what if I'm shooting from the bed of my truck, or I'm shooting from a bench that's not level and I'm sitting like this or like this? Sometimes if you're sitting on a slanted surface, you can be looking at that surface and feel like you're level there. Or if you're shooting at a target that's on a hill, you can be looking downrange through your scope and you can see something that looks level, but in fact, you're way crooked. So it's nice to be able to confirm somehow that this whole thing is level. So this is what I like using, an anti-cant device, AKA bubble level. So this is a very simple one that I like using. This is from Lone Star Precision. I'm sure there's other great ones on the market. I like something that clamps to the scope because it's nice and easy to adjust on a full circle. Now you can kind of skip a step if you get the ones that are mounted or machined into your rings or into the base, because I inherently know that that is level because they basically built it in there. They did it right from the factory and managed to skip a step, not having to add an extra device. But I don't like those because I found that when I'm looking through the scope, I then have to move my head to see it. I can't naturally see it while I'm still looking at my reticle. So I like this add-on device, and I set it to the side of my non-dominant eye. I'm left eye dominant, so I put it here poking out to the right side. It's got a nice kind of 45-degree design, so it peaks up above my windage and to the right of my elevation, so I can see it here. I like this so that I don't have to move my head at all. All I have to do is open my non-dominant eye, and I can see that bubble. I can make sure it's level, then I can close that eye. Some people shoot with both eyes open, and sometimes I do actually, but you can't really think about both things at the same time. So I like just opening this eye, checking my bubble, then closing it, and taking my shot. And at any point, all I have to do is open my eye, don't have to move my head. But this device, very simple to put on, so it's another, like the Aero Precision piece, another very simple, almost puzzle piece style clamp mount. So I'll put that under here. Slot that on, easy peasy. And it's just one screw to hold this on because we're not really holding a lot of weight. We're not holding anything together. All we're doing is holding this 1/4 ounce bubble level in place. So I'm just getting it on the tube right now. And I like to give myself enough clearance so that I can easily turn my entire windage knob and I'm not banging my knuckles on it, but I don't want it so far out that it's hard to see. So just somewhere in there, something like that. So I'm just gonna eyeball the level of the gun, eyeball the bubble level approximately, and sometimes you'll get lucky and you'll go to set this up and you'll realize, holy cow, I got it straight on. I got it perfectly right from the start. I found most times you don't though. So this is where we check this level with another level just to make sure everything's sitting good. So yes, you can use a mechanical, like an actual bubble. I found that the gyroscopic bubble level in this Google Pixel is actually very accurate. iPhones, they're great as well. It's all just how much you trust your tool. If you trust a bubble level a little bit more, use that. But you'll see I've got this rifle set up on a rear bag so that it's gonna hold exactly where I leave it because I wanna get it as precise as possible. You can use a gun vise to lock it in place or like a lead sled or something like that. But the point's not to be stable during a shot, it's just to hold it exactly where you want it. All right, 0.2. All right, 0.0. And now you can see, well, I'll take that off so you can see. I thought I was close, I wasn't. So it's a good ego check. A lot of times you're like, oh yeah, it's level, I'm totally good here. But when you actually measure it, it's not nearly as close as you thought. So move the gun as little as possible. Check that. We're gonna check it again. See, we did move it a little bit, even though I was trying not to. It says 0.6, 0.4. All right, I know it was tedious. That took a lot of time, but now we're zeroed out on here. I look at my bubble level. Looks nice and good. You're probably seeing it from a slight angle from the camera, but from straight on, we're looking great. So this is a tedious process, but it's worth it because I now know as I dial out at distance, I'm moving straight up and down, no left and right at all. I know that my scope is level to my rifle and the entire system in the field. I can just watch that bubble, make sure I'm level when I take the shot, boom, recoil jars it. Instead of just taking the shot from wherever it lands, I can know if I need to readjust or not. Get that level again and know that, boom, I'm gonna put it right in the same place every single time. So hopefully you found this helpful. It's something a lot of people screw up in setting up their gun. A lot of people just wanna slap that on there and head to the range, but taking the time to do it right will ensure you're a lot more accurate in the future. So hope you learned something. Until next time, stay safe, be free, and never stop seeking adventure.